Good day, folks. Welcome to the MB Wildman channel. On today's video, I just want to show you a real quick build that I do. It's kind of neat. It's a great way to keep souvenirs from a lot of your game. Now, this one I've used. This is a Bear Claw one that I've done. Okay, so this one I used a Bear Claw from my spring bear, and I use this little kind of trinket as a card protector. I may or may not, from occasion, play a few games or tournaments of Texas Hold'em, and I do like playing cards, but as you know, if you're a card player, you need a card protector for most of the time, especially in big tournaments and such, so your cards don't get mucked. So I use this one. It's a great conversation piece. All kinds of people looking across the table going, wow, you've got a Bear Claw protecting your cards, right? So you can use them for whatever you want. I've also built these just like this, and then kind of drilled a little hole in the top and hung it as a pendant, right? It's anyway, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty easy build if you've got a little bit of epoxy and a little bit of skill. So I'm going to show you real quick in today's video how to take Bear Claw, and it doesn't have to be a Bear Claw. You can use whatever kind of claw you want, or you can use whatever, you can use a tooth. I've seen a couple of guys use teeth. These the thing about a tooth is they need a little more prep than a claw, but it doesn't matter. So anyway, listen, if you haven't yet subscribed to the MB Wildman channel, we sure would appreciate it. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And as always, we're looking for questions, comments, feedback, whatever you got. Leave those in the comment section down below. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, kind of social media platform you want. But anyway, so stick with me today. I'm going to show you what you're going to need to build this. I'm going to call it I don't know what I'm going to call it. This is my card protector, but anyway. So what you're going to need to start with before you get everything going, you're going to need a little. This is I think it's a cupcake mold. I bought it at the dollar store. It was like 50 cents, right? So it's one of those rubbery things for baking, okay? It's made of, stuff you can put in the oven. I can't think of the word, but you know what I'm trying to say. Okay, so you'll need one of these that's roughly the size of what you want to create. If you want to do a pendant, the smaller the better. If you're going to use, it for a paperweight or something like that, just a lucky charm to keep in your pocket, whatever, then you can choose whatever size you want. But I found that these ones, I think these are 1.5-inch molds, right? They're great for doing bear claws. You're certainly going to need a bear claw if you're going to do it with a bear claw. Please make sure that you dispatch the bear first, because these are son of a gun to get off a bear if the bear's still living, okay? So make sure that you've got yourself a bear that's not super angry if you're taking his claw or her claw. You're going to need a little torch, a little flame. You're going to need nail polish, clear nail polish. You're going to need some rubber gloves, and you're going to need some epoxy. Now, I use new classic resin, thick pour epoxy. I get it on Amazon. I'll drop a link down below in the description as to the exact stuff that I use. You don't have to use this exact stuff, just any type of epoxy that you can pour. But don't get tabletop epoxy, right? So tabletop epoxy is designed to just be poured, to pour really thin layers for like a bar top or a table or something like that. You need a thick pour epoxy, and if you're going to do this project and make it work right and not have a whole whack of work to do, okay? Other than that, I think that's everything we need to get started. So here we go. Okay, so first of all, you want to mix. Now I put my epoxy in here, just a little container here, and you're going to want to mix this up real well. This is a 2-to-1 epoxy mix, so if you use the new classic resin thick pour, it's a 2-to-1 mixture. Whatever you buy has instructions with it, so whatever your epoxy mix says to do, you need to do that, and you need to mix it up real well. The thing with epoxy is if you don't mix the hardener in all the way, then it certainly won't work. Okay. So one of the things to remember here is that you only want to use enough epoxy. Epoxy is not cheap, so you only want to use enough to get the bottom layer of whatever you're going to make. So if you're going to make a pendant like this one, right, like this is pretty neat. If you're going to make a little pendant like this, you only want to pour about half of the thickness of it in your cup, right? So however you figure that out, all I did was I took my Bear Claw, this is my raw one, right? And I measured the thickness of it. And then I decided that I wanted to go roughly, the same thickness on the bottom and then on the top again, right? To give it a little mass, because I was going to use it as a card protector. If you're going to use it as a necklace or something like that, whatever you're going to use it for, you may want to put a little less of the epoxy on the bottom, okay? So as long as you have enough epoxy that you've got the thickness of the entire claw, covered, then you're going to be okay with it, okay? So once you get that done and you measure out how much epoxy you need, you're just going to pour it as carefully as you can. You should always wear gloves dealing with epoxy. It's not the end of the world, like if you get it on you, but the cleanup is a little junky, right? So anyway, you've got your little rubbery deal with the circle, and you've got your epoxy mix, and all you're going to do now is you're just going to pour the base. Okay, good. You're going to just pour the base layer in there, okay? Now, what you'll find is, depending on how fast you stir your epoxy, you can get little bitty bubbles in it, right? So that's why we have a torch. So the bubbles, just a real quick touch with the torch will pop all the bubbles off the top. And then there you go. That's your step one, so you're just going to leave that there. Okay, through the wonders of magic television, we're back here, 36 or so hours later. And I've got this all done. See, it's hard now, right? So that's all hard now. It's all cured. You can actually peel it out of this if you want to see, just to make sure you have the right thickness, or the thickness that you're looking for. You can actually take it right out of the mold, and it just pops in and out, no problem. Okay, so it's all cured. Put it back in the mold. And the next thing that you're going to need to do is take your clear nail polish and your claw or your tooth or whatever you're going to use, and you want to give it a good coating, okay? So basically what you're doing at this point is you're using the clear nail polish to seal and shine that claw. Sometimes those claws, or these claws, once you get them out, they get a little bit dull looking, or they can lose some of their luster. And I want it, if I'm going to capture it forever inside my epoxy, I want it to look as good as possible. So a little clear nail polish does wonders. It also seals it so that the little bitty bubbles that you sometimes get when you do epoxy don't come out of it. If I don't have it on the channel yet, I'm going to have another video where I do an entire skull in epoxy to keep it. And one of the smaller issues I had with the epoxy skull was that I didn't seal it this way first, and there was a few bubbles in it. Now, luckily, the few bubbles that were in it looked really cool when it was done, so I kind of lucked out on that one. All right, so once you've got a good layer of clear nail polish on here, you're going to lay this whichever way you want it to be, probably as close to in the center of your circle as possible, right? And you're going to push it, just touch it down, just make sure it sticks. Okay, so just make sure it stays down there. The other thing is, when we do our second pour of epoxy, so when we fill this on up over top of the claw, the same distance, we want to make sure the claw doesn't float to the top. So this nail polish will help keep it down, keep it pinched together, so that when we do pour that second pour, it stays there, right? But you can't see that nail polish, you can't see it in the epoxy, okay? So we're just going to let that all dry. It doesn't take long, about an hour or so, and then we'll be back here for our second pour. Okay, so getting ready to do the top pour again here. Or not again, I guess we're getting ready to mix up for the top. We've got the nail polish is all dry. So I'm not going to mix a lot. Of course, we're just going to do about 75 milliliters for this top one. I mixed up a little too much for the bottom part, but I didn't pour it all in, so I ended up wasting a little bit. But that's you live and learn with those types of things. So for this one, I'm going to use 50 of the epoxy and 25 of the hardener. Again, depending, of course, on the type of epoxy that you buy, that will dictate what mixture you use and what ratio, that's a good word, ratio, I guess. What ratio you use to do this up. So anyway, I'm going to mix this up for the next 5 minutes or so. You probably don't need to watch it, so you don't need to watch me mix, so I'll either speed it up or fade it out or something here. Okay, so I got my mixture all done up here. It's all together, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it in over top of the claw that I have here. Now, again, just so you can see, this claw is attached, right? So I can tip it up on its side. So the nail polish, the clear nail polish, really helped us stick it to it, so that when I pour this in, it won't float to the top. So this is the only real tricky part of this, is that you want to pour. You want to try to pour it over top of the claw, of course, but then you want to try to pour the same thickness as what you have underneath it to give you that even, you know, claw right in the middle type effect. So we'll see how we make out here. I don't know if you can see this or not, but you probably can't. I don't know if I can do it up close or not for you here, but not really. All right, we'll pour it and then show you. So just a nice even pour. The slower you pour it, the less bubbles you're going to have when you're done. And it will find its own level, so you don't have to worry about, you know, it's a lot like water in that aspect. You just have to make sure that you poured enough of it, like I just said, to get over top of the claw, and then roughly the same amount that you had underneath it. That's actually pretty good right there. Okay, let me grab the camera here. So what you can see is that I've just poured my epoxy, and it's there's a few bubbles coming up there. That's why you need the torch. So make sure you have the torch handy when you do these things, right? Because those little bubbles, if you just leave them, they'll harden, of course, and then you got a bubble in your epoxy that you can't get out. Keep in mind too, just as a safety thing, this is not fireproof. This is just like a rubbery substance. So make sure that when you do your bubbles with your heat, you keep it nice and high, so you're just popping the bubbles and not melting your mold. All right, so there we are for right now. We're gonna leave this for about 72 hours, let it set up good and hard, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what we got for a final project. All right, guys, so here we are back again, and it's been, I don't know, 72 hours. I guess I'll let this just set over the weekend. And this is what we've got. Okay, so our little mold, and solid as can be, right? So you can choose to just leave it like this. All you have to do is just peel it out of the mold, and it comes right out. Like this, this little silicone mold stuff is perfect, right, to do this job with. And then this is completely reusable. It's as good as new, right? You can do another one or whatever you want. And then this is the cool result that you have. Right, so you've got your thickness that you wanted above and below the claw, and then you've got your bear claw sealed in your little oval. Now, the mold is shaped, right, so it does kind of go up at an angle. If you don't like that, you can always just take the sand off the edge. When you sand, the epoxy will dull, right, so you'll get kind of this milky kind of color when you sand it. But if you use progressively finer grits of sandpaper, right down to about, well, I've got the skull down to about 2,000 grit right now. So I started out with 150, 220, and then dropped it down into 1,000 grit, and then 2,000 grit. So I guess I did 600 somewhere in the middle. But anyway, this is what you get when you do the cool, right? So this is my. Again, this is, I would use this as a card protector or a paperweight or whatever. And if you want it as a pendant, like something that you can hang, and you don't want it to be this big around, you can either get a smaller container to start with, or you can take, and like this one, these started out the same size, right? I did them both the same. So what I did with this one is I took it over to my sander and I just sanded the edges until I got it the shape that I wanted, right? So I just went around, and you can see that the edges of this one are a little frosty. Now I can clean that up and make it clear like this if I want to, but I kind of like the look of it like that, so I just left it the way it was. So anyway, just a neat little project thought I'd share with you today. And as always, if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments down below. Until next time, happy hunting from the MB Wildman channel.